In a world that's all about digital showmanship, there's this incredible quiet power in not needing to be seen. So today, we're going to dig into why some of the strongest, most resilient identities are actually built in silence.
And look, it's a question a lot of us probably ask ourselves, right? You scroll through your feed, you see everyone announcing every single move they make, and you start to wonder, is staying quiet, is being low-key, a sign that I'm somehow falling behind? But here's a thought. What if we've been looking at this completely backwards? What if choosing silence isn't a weakness at all, but actually a massive strategic advantage, a sign of some seriously high-performance psychology?
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to dive into the psychology behind it. And that brings us to our first big idea, what we're calling your internal compass. And this quote just nails it. Think about it. It's like installing a super precise compass deep inside a ship. So while everyone else is scrambling, looking at the stars, following other boats to figure out where to go, you've got this internal guide. It stays steady no matter how foggy it gets or how strong the current is.
So that internal compass, that's what psychologists call self-concept clarity. And the key thing to get here is that it's not about having a perfect identity. Nobody does. It's about having a clear one. It means you know who you are, you know what you stand for, and you know where you're going. And this really shows the fundamental shift that happens. See, when your self-concept is kind of blurry, you're operating from what's called an external locus. You're looking outside for validation, likes, what's trending, what other people think. But when you have that clarity, you shift to an internal locus. Suddenly your own standards, your own values, that's what matters. The result of that shift, it's huge. You end up building this really secure self-esteem that doesn't need a single like to prove it exists. It just doesn't go up and down with whatever people are saying online because its foundation was never built there to begin with.
Okay, so this internal strength becomes your shield, right? It's this powerful defense against all the pressures of the modern digital world. And that leads us right into our next section, resisting the digital illusion. Oh man, we all know this feeling. It's called social comparison theory. That's the fancy psychological term for the trap we fall into. When you're endlessly scrolling through someone else's perfectly curated highlight reel and suddenly your own real, messy life feels, well, like it's just not measuring up. And falling into that trap, it comes at a really high cost. You end up chasing trends, constantly performing for an audience. Your happiness gets tied to how people react to a post. I mean, can you imagine? It is an absolutely exhausting way to live. But this is exactly where that internal compass we talked about comes back in. Having high self-concept clarity makes you incredibly resilient to this stuff because you're steering by your own map, you're just not as easily pulled off course by what all the other ships are doing around you. And that resilience lets you make a really powerful choice. You get to prioritize peace over performance. This is the strategy of what we're calling the quiet architect. So, just think about your mental energy for a second. It's a limited resource, right? You can spend it all on social performance, crafting that public image, seeking validation, or you can invest it in cognitive complexity. That's focusing on the actual work, on structuring your own internal system. The quiet architect, they always choose the second one. So you see, staying low-key isn't about hiding from the world. It is a deliberate, smart strategy for mental efficiency. You are protecting and conserving your most valuable resource, your focus, and aiming it at what actually matters to you. And when you make that choice, something pretty amazing happens. Your confidence, it stops being this fragile thing that fluctuates with an algorithm. It's no longer up one day and down the next. Instead, it becomes a permanent foundation. So what's the big takeaway here? What does all this add up to? Well, it's about way more than just feeling less stressed. It's about holding the blueprints to building your own life. So the next time you feel that pressure to announce your moves, just remember this. The most successful people, the ones really making a difference, don't always need to be heard. Often, their work just speaks for itself. This self-concept clarity, it becomes your greatest tool. It's how you build a life of real substance. It's a life guided by your own internal science, your own systems. And it's a life of deep, unshakable security. And I think this final quote just says it all, really. You don't need to be seen to feel seen when you are the one holding the blueprints to your own identity. The need for an outside audience, it just kind of fades away because you already know the design is solid.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that you have the blueprints, now that you know your greatest work can be done away from the spotlight, what will you choose to build in silence?